What is up, heroes? Jake Parker here, and it's time for another easy-to-follow, basic, no-nonsense beginner's guide with timestamps on how to play the newest Samoan tank character, Mauga, in Overwatch 2. Whether you're a brand new player looking for how to play Mauga or an experienced player looking to expand your hero selection pool, this video will provide you a complete in-depth analysis of Mauga from the inside out and how to maximize your success during play. We're going to break down Mauga into the basic, non-advanced details about every ability in a way you've probably never heard or seen before, some best hero tips, and of course, if there's anything in the basic info you think I may have missed in this video, I'd love to hear your feedback on this video in the comments below. And of course, if you enjoy this video and look forward to more Overwatch or gaming content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to know when my next video will be live. Alright y'all, let's get started. Mauga is the newest tank hero introduced to Overwatch 2 during Season 8's Call of the Hunt. Mauga stands out as one of the most survivable tanks ever introduced in the game to date, with 250 to 400 base health and 250 armor at the time of this video, which can also insanely increase when you're using his abilities correctly. Not only that, but Mauga has the ability to lower the damage given to allies, constantly heal when dealing critical damage, deal massive damage in a short amount of time, and also open up critical damage for maximum lethality. Unlike other tanks, Mauga can not only keep enemy teams from progressing, but with his incredibly unique ultimate ability, he can also keep them from retreating to safety. A confident and skilled Mauga player with the right support can easily create havoc for the enemy team. To start with his continued uniqueness, Mauga is not only equipped with one, but two hit scam based chainguns with 350 bullets shared between them in the magazine, and ironically with their own names called Gunny and Cha-Cha. Each bullet deals 4 damage to an opponent while also still allowing for the traditional headshot crit multiplier. The chaingun Gunny is also known as the incendiary chaingun, which, after repeated damage of 10 shots, will cause enemies to ignite on fire. The chaingun Cha-Cha, however, is where the fun really begins. Cha-Cha is also known as the volatile chaingun, which will cause all of the bullets to deal critical damage to any ignited enemies. Not only this, but you can use both chainguns at the exact same time. This means that a single gun being used will allow 20 seconds of continuous firing, while using both chainguns will provide 10 seconds. When your magazine is depleted, it takes approximately 2 seconds to fully reload before being able to fire again. Some big tips to remember here when using your chain guns is to know when to alternate between using one gun or both, and do your best not to prioritize using both guns at the same time. Your chain guns are much more accurate when you're using one at a time to apply ignition and critical damage alternatively. Now, yeah, using both at the same time to do more damage in a shorter amount of time could sound good. It also greatly increases the bullet spread and can cause you to miss more shots the further away you are from an enemy. Not to mention forcing you to reload faster and opening up the enemy team for an advantage. You want to save using both at the same time for when you're basically at point blank range from an enemy, focusing damage on a tank, or currently in Mauga's ultimate ability that we're going to talk about a bit later. And lastly, when using chain guns, Mauga does receive a small movement penalty that does stack when both guns are used. So depending on your positioning, you do want to keep this movement penalty in mind. Overrun is Mauga's first ability that sees him charging forward with much faster speed, knocking back and damaging any enemies he runs into, then stomping onto the ground and launching enemies into the air for even more damage. To add even more badassness to Mauga, he not only gains a 50% damage reduction, but he also becomes unstoppable while Overrun is active, meaning that certain abilities like Ana's sleep darts, Sombra's hacks, Doomfist punches, and other status effects will not cause him to stagger. This is an amazing ability for getting into the fray, opening up a path, staggering opponents, and giving your team the ability to capitalize. Some big tips to remember when Overrun is active is that just because you're technically unstoppable, you're also still damageable even though you have a 50% damage reduction. This does mean that blindly using Overrun could have disastrous consequences if you decide to abandon your team and force rush a slam and end up on your own, especially with Overrun's current 6-second cooldown. Communicate your Overrun with your team so that they know your intentions and when to support your push. And lastly, Overrun is great when followed by Mauga's other abilities, and especially his ultimate. Because Overrun blasts enemies up into the air for a quick stagger, following up with Mauga's ult makes it very much less likely that they'll be able to escape before being trapped, and allowing for a lethal combination of abilities between yourself and your teammates. Mauga's next ability is Cardiac Overdrive, and this is where Mauga's survivability truly takes place, especially when paired with his Berserker passive, which gives you temporary health when dealing critical damage. With Cardiac Overdrive active, Mauga creates an area of effect that not only reduces the amount of damage your allies receive while in the area, but himself as well. Not to mention allowing him to heal 70% of the damage that is dealt in turn. This means that while Cardiac Overdrive is active, team survivability is at the forefront, and Mauga can essentially heal his entire health bar almost immediately when played correctly. Some big tips to consider here is that the area of effect for Cardiac Overdrive is decently large, meaning Mauga can reduce damage for your entire team. But keep in mind that allies must be in the area of effect, and ally line of sight is needed to receive the reduced damage, so communication can be super important. Next, I highly recommend pairing Cardiac Overdrive carefully with Mauga's Berserker passive of healing during critical damage. So try to use Cardiac Overdrive when enemies are ignited to make it easier to provide critical damage for easier healing. And lastly, Mauga's final ability is his ultimate, the Cage Fight, which on activation sees a giant circular barrier with 1500 health surround him and any enemies within its boundaries, and attaches chains to anyone within it so they cannot escape. While the ultimate is active for 8 seconds, Mauga receives unlimited ammo and can unload lethal damage to anyone who remains trapped within, and especially enemies who are ignited. This ultimate is incredible for locking out any chance of enemies escaping from a zone or payload. There's a lot of big tips to consider here with Mauga's ultimate, the first being that it is an extremely high-risk reward ultimate that should almost never be used on its own. Now, the reason for this is that although, yes, it does limit what enemies can do or move for, enemies that are within your ultimate can still attack you while they're locked in the cage. This means that the more enemies that you tag with your ult, the more likely you could possibly end up in a 5v1 situation, and it's more likely you could be eliminated if you're not being healed by your allies. On the flip side, this is also an opportunity to focus on igniting enemies and activating Cardiac Overdrive, which we just talked about, alongside the Berserker passive ability to constantly heal while dealing damage to chain players. This is really where Mauga's full kit comes into play. Next, Mauga's ultimate works its best when paired with almost any other hero ultimate, since it locks enemy players' ability to escape. Some examples include Maze Blizzard, Reaper's Blossom, and just about any other area of effect ultimates from any other hero. Communicate with your ultimate and your teammates as best you can, and you can easily eliminate an entire enemy team in one go. Because your barrier has health, if the barrier is destroyed while the ultimate is active, the remaining ultimate will cancel early. And if Mauga is eliminated, the ultimate will still remain in place until the time expires or the barrier is destroyed. And the last thing to keep in mind, Mauga's ultimate is not all blocking, and some abilities like the Lifeweaver Grip, Orisa Fortify, or Symmetra Teleport could allow enemies to leave the ultimate at any time. And there you have it, y'all, your basic beginner's guide to learning and mastering the basics of Mauga in Overwatch 2. Obviously, things may change in the future, and if anything does, then I'll of course be sure to update you in another video, but of course, please leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video and look forward to more Overwatch content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to know when my next video will be live. Thank you for being the reason I get to do what I do, and of course, until the next video, heroes, game on.